Hello. Episode 22 is titled Baptised by Fright. This episode moves from the safety of training into the realities of life at sea. The first time theory becomes physical, fear becomes immediate, and the sea taught lessons no classroom could fully prepare me for. If you are listening, only close your eyes and let your mind enter the story. If you are watching the visuals, set aside distractions for a while and immerse yourself in the images and the narration so you can almost feel what I felt. My first posting as an apprentice with Great Eastern Shipping was to a product tanker, all of 525 feet length, 24 tanks displacing about 19,000 tons dead weight and capable of carrying 8 grades of petroleum products with positive segregation, which meant 2 valves between each product. As I learned the basics of loading and discharging, operating the steam-driven reciprocating pumps in the pump rooms, and supervising cargo-related work, I also learned tank washing, then commonly called butterworthing, named after the machines which were manufactured by Butterworth. Between cargoes, the tanks had to be washed according to the requirements of the next product. The process used small, heavy, portable 2 or 3 nozzle machines made by Butterworth, connected to high-pressure hoses. They injected water jets at high pressure into the tanks. The machines had to be lowered manually through the Butterworth ports to different depths and left there for set periods so that each tank received the proper top, middle, and bottom wash. Throughout the operation, we checked the tank atmosphere with an explosimeter to ensure it remained either too rich or too lean to ignite. One fine day, sailing east from the west coast of India towards Madras to load different grades of lubes, I was happily supervising tank cleaning near the forward end of the ship as we entered the Gulf of Mannar. The light vessel began meeting the long southerly swells of the Indian Ocean, pitching and slamming gently as she made her way ahead. Ships are built like elongated rectangular boxes held together by steel frames and transverse bulkheads as they sail the seas. We had learned this theory in ship construction class on the training ship, but theory was no comfort to a young cadet on his first vessel standing 400 feet forward of the accommodation and watching the solid steel of the main deck ripple as the ship moved through the swells. I was convinced that she would break. Though I had been an athlete in school and later I must have made a record-breaking 400-foot dash back to the accommodation aft, the senior cadet had a good laugh. He explained the basics of ship construction once again, hogging and sagging stresses in a seaway, and then he accompanied me back to the forward end just to reassure me. That was my first fright. 2 months later, I was much more comfortable on board. I had begun taking on responsible roles, standing independent cargo watch in port, supervising operations, and accompanying surveyors before and after cargo work. Tank cleaning remained part of the routine between discharge and the next loading. Sometime in November, a little over 2 months after I began my apprenticeship, we docked at West Quay 1 in Madras Port to load 5 grades of lubes, and it was a slow process because of the oil's viscosity. As each grade pumped in, the shore pipeline was separated by an inline, snugly fitted round rubber ball called the pig. The shore staff of the oil company frequently mentioned launching or receiving the pig between grades. After completing my 8-hour shift from 0400 or 4 a.m. to 12 noon, I was looking forward to going ashore. There were weather reports of a meteorological disturbance in the eastern Bay of Bengal. But I freshened up anyway and left on shore leave at around 1500 or 3 p.m. to catch up with local friends. We had a great time, and I returned to the ship around midnight. By then, the vessel was heaving alongside, as the seas outside the breakwater had grown rough and the effects were being felt inside the port. Loading was still in progress, though at a reduced rate as a precaution. I quickly fell asleep, and 3 hours and 45 minutes I was awakened by the quarter call, which meant I had 15 minutes to report for duty and relieve the watchkeeper. By then, cargo operations had ceased, loading hoses had been disconnected, and the gentle heaving had become a fore and aft surge. The mooring hawsers that were 8-strand cross-braided 8-inch polypropylene ropes were snapping just like matchsticks. I worked with teams of crew on the pier and aboard, both forward and aft, making temporary eyes with bowlines on the snapped hawsers and securing them again on the bollards ashore. All of us worked continuously through the early hours of the morning. The storm was getting closer towards Madras, and by 9 a.m. the port asked all vessels to leave the port and head to sea to reduce extensive damage if the moorings broke inside the harbour. The pilot boarded the light ship with 50% cargo loaded, and the tugs helped pull the vessel away from the quayside and turn her outward in the inner harbour when the pilot disembarked, leaving the captain to take the ship out into the stormy Bay of Bengal. Inside the port, the seas had been choppy enough to keep me too busy with snapping ropes to think. Outside the harbour, the waves and the swell were, as I vividly recall, tumultuous and gigantic. Once at sea, I was put on lookout duty with my raincoat on the bridge wing, high above the seas in overcast and poor visibility conditions, and while heavy rain pelted down, stronger winds had me holding the bulwarks for support while the ship rolled and pitched and yawed. The captain set a course into the seas in line with evasive action to avoid the dangerous semicircle of the cyclone. I was on lookout duty at the edge of the bridge wing at the mercy of nature in wind speeds in excess of 150 kilometers an hour. The rolling and pitching were quite unlike anything I had experienced. Sick to the core, I would empty my stomach on the leeward side while the ship rolled 15 to 20 degrees. I watched with horror the yawing bow and the nearly a third of the forward deck disappearing underwater as it hit a huge wave. The aft end rose, and I thought this was the beginning of the end, only to see the bow rise again and slowly shed the water before the motion repeated itself. I was sure I was going to disappear for good with the ship, and asked myself, why had I chosen this career? Some time later, I was summoned into the wheelhouse to relieve the quartermaster at the wheel while he went for tea, and me not comprehending how anyone could keep anything down in that weather, let alone tea. 20 minutes later, I was relieved at the wheel, and the chief officer told me to knock off. It was well past 7 p.m. by then, and I hit the sack exhausted. We discovered later that the storm had changed course north towards Machilipatnam and had finally hit the Andhra coast around Divisima. The November 1977 Andhra Pradesh cyclone was later classified as a devastating cyclonic storm, almost a super cyclone, and had caused extensive loss of life, property, and general devastation. I finally surfaced at 8 a.m. the next morning when the cyclone had made landfall. The seas had calmed, and we were heading back to Madras port to complete the loading. I had survived. Looking back after many more experiences in the ascending ranks and later as master, I realized that early Baptism by fright and storm stood me in good stead for the years to come. So, as you reflect on the baptisms you may have faced early in life and the lessons they brought, remember to like, to share, and subscribe. This is Captain Jun signing off.